welcome to our video. This is my October wrap up. In October, I read 1 physical book, 2 ebooks, 5 audiobooks, and 1 manga, for a total of 9 books, which I think is about my worst reading month I've had this year. But we're just gonna move on and talk about the books now. So the only physical book I finished in October, because I started a couple and just didn't finish them yet, is Craven Manor by Darcy Coates. This was the horror book I picked to read this year. Every spooky season I read like 1 or 2 of her horror books. I really like her writing. They're usually not like top tier material, but they're like entertaining and she really sets that like eerie vibe. And so the one I picked this year was Craven Manor, and this is about this guy named Daniel who like really needs a job, and one day this like envelope is slipped under his door that is a letter offering him a job as a groundskeeper at this manor. And he takes it, even though it's suspicious, because he needs a job. So he, goes there. There's no one there. He doesn't meet the guy who offered him the job. He just keeps being left letters, and he's paid in gold coins, and there's like no one in the manor. It's like super abandoned, super creepy. And yeah, it's like a haunted house. So there's spooky happenings. I won't go into the details for that one, because one thing I like about Darcy Coates books is you don't know what the spooky bit is, Like, all the books I've read so far have been like a haunted house, but not necessarily by a ghost, if that makes sense. Like, sometimes it's a ghost, sometimes it is some other creature. So I am not going to say what happens in this book, because you don't know going into it. The back of the book does not tell you what is the spooky happening of the house. So yeah, I like that about her writing. Something else I like about Darcy Coates' writing is that she does a good job, I think, of balancing like spooky, eerie settings and instances and happenings with like heartfelt moments. And I know that sounds weird, but I promise it just like works really well, that like you get attached to these characters and what they're going through and the relationships they form. And sometimes the like spooky happenings are like not what they seem, and there's just like a lot of feelings in these books, and a lot of different kinds of feelings, and I just really do like that about her writing. In this book, I definitely feel like the heartfelt moments kind of outweighed the spookiness, and I feel like this one's like the least scary of her books that I've read. It did not really scare me at all. I really liked Daniel, and I wanted him to have a happy ending, and I was like really rooting for him, and I wasn't necessarily scared by anything. I was just like, another thing he's going through. So I still like that about her writing, that she's able to like put those heartfelt moments in it and make you feel for the characters so much. But yeah, this one definitely wasn't super spooky, which was a little bit of a letdown. And I don't know, I still really like this book. Like, I really like the story, but I went into it looking for scary and it wasn't. However, it did still set the like scene very well. Like, I loved the description of like the house and the grounds, and it was very eerie. It was definitely the right book for the season. It just wasn't exactly what I was looking for. I think I decided on 3.5 stars for this book, because I really did enjoy it. It just wasn't quite there in the like horror that I was looking for, but I did like this one. I would say it's the least scary of hers that I've read, but I don't think it was my least favorite enjoyment wise that I've read by her. So I still think it was a pretty good book, and I would definitely recommend this author as horror if you want something good for next spooky season. My favorite one I read by her is The Haunting of Ashburn House. That was the first one I read, and I gave that one 5 stars. I really loved that one. And then I finished 2 ebooks in the month of October. The first one I finished was The Cabin in the Woods. And I don't remember the author name for this one, because this was a book. Oh, I just realized my phone did not charge at all last night, and it's almost dead. That's nice. That is unrelated. Yeah, The Cabin in the Woods by Sarah Alderson. So this is a book where I was just looking through Libby about like what thrillers or mysteries like were available, and I saw this one, and I thought the cover was like kind of interesting. It's like kind of like basic, but it was like interesting enough, and the title sounded like eerie, so I read the description and I liked it, and I read it, and I actually really liked this one. So basically, this book is about this woman. It's told in dual timelines. So there's this woman that's hiding in this cabin in the woods because the police are after her. She is like a missing person. And going into the book, that's kind of all you know. And then you are following her in like current time, like her in the cabin trying to survive, trying to hide, and then you're getting her past. So it starts with her childhood and you learn about her like childhood like as a little kid, and then it goes into like her early 20s, and then you follow a lot of her 20s because I think she's like in her early 30s in current times. And so you follow a lot of her 20s and like what happened to get her where she is now. And I really, really love this book. Actually, I think this might be my favorite thriller I've read this year. I just thought it was told so well with the dual timelines. And a lot of the times like mysteries and thrillers do this thing that like really bothers me where it like hints at stuff but like over and over again. And it's not like sly hinting that makes you like curious. It's just like the main character like in their head will be like, if only they knew the thing I did, or like stuff like that. And it's just so cheesy, and it's like, just spit it out. It didn't do that. It like, I don't know, it would be like her in current times seeing a newspaper with a headline, and then you would read the headline and you'd be like, what is it talking about? And then it would jump back in time, and during that portion of the past you will understand that headline. Like it does stuff like that where like it like introduces something and you're like, what? And then like it not like immediately, but like within like the next chapter it kind of like touches up on it. So you're like, oh, I don't know. I really don't know how to describe it, but I really did like the way this book was laid out. I liked the mystery and how you just didn't really know what was gonna happen, and sometimes something would happen in the current timeline and then it would jump back a little bit, like a day or like a few hours, and you'd be like, oh my gosh, like all this stuff happened that I didn't even know about. Like, I don't know. I really, really love this book a lot. It was such a pleasant surprise. Usually when I just randomly find books on Libby to read, I don't really care for them that much. This one I really, really loved, and I finished this one at the beginning of the month, so I don't quite remember what I was thinking for ratings, but I do think it was like 4.5 or 5. Like I really did love this book, and yeah, it was just a really great thriller. The other ebook I read was The Kiss Curse by Erin Sterling. This is the sequel to The Ex-Hex, which I read last spooky season. And so this is basically like a cozy witchy romance series that can get kind of spicy. When I say cozy, I mean like the town and the atmosphere is cozy, but there is spice. So basically it's set in this little town called Graves Glen. It's in Georgia. And think like, it's kind of like Stars Hollow meets Halloween Town. It's like this cozy town that's very like fall centric, but also very like Halloween heavy. Like it's like a touristy place. Like a lot of people go there for the Halloween season because the atmosphere is so great. And the main character of this book, her name is Gwen, and her cousin Vivi. Vivi's the main character of the first book. And then Gwen's mom. They're witches and they have like their own coven. And Gwen and her mom run this like witchy shop in town that's like touristy. Like it's like none of it's real magic. It's all like kind of junk. Like it's like glittery and silly, but it like sells really well. And they're witches. And there's a lot of witches in the town. In fact, they have a college in the town that like is for regular people, but then they have like a witchy portion of the college for witches to go to and like learn about their craft and stuff. It's a really, really cute town. It's so atmospheric. I really love this series for that reason. But yeah, so this one follows Gwen. And so Vivi got with Reese in the first book, and he has 2 brothers. So one of his brothers, Wells, is the main guy in this book. So Wells moves from Wales to Graves Glen and opens up a witchy store across the street from Gwen's. His is more like serious, more scholarly, more like, you know, like leather bound book. It's still not real magic. It's still like fake stuff you would just buy to have, but it's like a different vibe. And so they're kind of like competing with their stores, but they also have like beef from like the first book and stuff. And yeah, so it's kind of like rivals to lovers, and it's really cute. I kind of felt the same way about this book as I did about The Ex-Hex, which is that I really love the atmosphere. They're very entertaining to read. They're very cute, but that's it. They're not super great, but I do really enjoy them. I think they're a perfect read for October, but I forget I read them once October ends, and I don't think about it again until the next October. So I would still recommend the series if you're looking for like a light witchy romance for the spooky season. I think it is good for that. I think I settled on 4 stars for this book, but I will probably forget about it in a couple weeks. So yeah, cute, atmospheric, witchy romance. And I read the most audiobooks out of anything this month. I've been really lacking in the audiobooks world until this month, and I read those 5 the first 2 weeks of the month. I was doing really, really well. In the past 2 weeks, I haven't read it all. So the first audiobook I finished in October was called All This Time. This was a YA coming-of-age romance book. I don't know if you can tell from my tone, but I didn't like it. This is about this guy who on the day of his high school graduation, him and his girlfriend are in a car accident and she dies and he's like, you know, injured. He has like his leg and his collarbone, and he has like a head injury. So he's in the hospital for a couple days and then he gets to go home. And so this book is about him like coming to terms with his injuries and losing his girlfriend. And he like meets this girl and they like kind of like grieve together over stuff. And there's like a big twist that I was not expecting. So it's kind of hard for me to talk about this book because that twist really changed things for me. And then the ending also changed things again in the negative direction. I think this is one of those books where, you know, The Fault in Our Stars did very well and is a very good book. I reread that as an adult. I think it still holds up. That was a very good book. So a lot of authors tried to write teenage romance stories that had some kind of health condition, and none of them worked. Because I've read a few of them and none of them work. There's just things about them that I think aren't good, and the stories themselves aren't good. I really overall did not like this book. I really was disappointed by it. I will say the one thing about this book that I did like, that I think it did do good, is I liked the way it depicted grief. I liked that it shows that people grieve in different ways and different time frames, and there's no right way to grieve. And, you know, people will try to be there for you in whatever way they can, and you just have to, you know, let them help in a way they can help. Even, I don't know. I did like the way it depicted grief as someone who did grieve as a teenager. Yeah, I think it did that well. Everything else, I don't think it did well. And I'll leave it at that. The next audiobook I'll talk about was a nonfiction book, actually. I actually read a nonfiction book, guys. I listened to Counting the Cost, which is a memoir from Julia Duggar from the 19 Kids and Counting. I don't know if you remember that craze from a few years ago. I have never been into reality TV, so I never watched any of their shows, but I did hear about them, because who hasn't heard about the family that has 19 kids? That's insane. But I just thought it would be interesting because I do want to get into reading nonfiction and memoirs and stuff, so I thought this one would be interesting to see behind the scenes into a life like that, and it was fascinating. So basically, the Duggars are this very Christian family from, I think, Texas, the South or Midwest or something like that. They're very Christian, and they had a lot of kids. I think they were at 10 or 12 kids or something, and their dad was a car salesman, and he decided to run for some political position, and he lost. But in doing the campaign, reporters, got wind of this man that had all these kids, and they did a story on them, which led to a documentary, and which led to their reality TV show. They had multiple TV shows, I think, because they kept having more kids, so they kept changing the name. I think they would do different contracts for different amounts of time or something. I don't know, because I've heard multiple names. I've heard 14 kids and counting, 15 kids and counting. I know the last one was 19 kids and counting. I think they stopped at 19 kids. And so the main character, the woman telling the story. I also realized I have been saying her name wrong. It is Jill, not Julia. I apologize. Jill is the 4th child, I think. So she was, one of the oldest. She was reliable and she was always happy. And so she felt a lot of stress being the reliable child, being the happy child. She was always willing to help with a smile. She was that daughter. And so you kind of just go through her life seeing what's going on in their family and how she is internally feeling about it, but what she's doing externally, because she had a lot of anxiety from a young age and just had to be a certain way because that's what her parents wanted and that's what her siblings needed. And yeah, it was just really so fascinating to see someone grow up like that. Not, my family is not religious, so it was fascinating seeing someone grow up in a extremely Christian family. And that was just fascinating to read about, but also reading about like behind the scenes of like reality TV and like what it meant for them and how it like changed their lives, like when they were older and it was time for them to start getting married. And, you know, everything had to be on camera. Like they had to tell them about everything in advance so they could film it and get every reaction. And I don't know, it was actually insane. I really did enjoy reading this book. It was very eye-opening. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really do want to read more nonfiction. In case you're wondering why she wrote the book, you find that out too. Obviously some stuff went down and she did not agree with her parents, and so she wrote a book about their lives. So, you know, if you want to know what that is, read the book and you'll find out. And then I started a new series in October. I started the Lunar Chronicles series, which is so funny to me because I remember this is a series that started back when I was reading books like this, like in middle school. And I remember trying to read Cinder multiple times and I could not get into it. But Sarah Caroli keeps talking about how she wants to read the book. And I was like, you know what, let me give it a try as an audiobook. And I loved it. I loved it so much. In the month of October, I read 3 of the 4 books, and I'm currently halfway through the 4th one. I love this series. So basically, this series is fairy tale retellings, but set in like a sci-fi world kind of. So like Cinder, the main character of the first book, is a cyborg. It's a Cinderella retelling, but she is like 35% cyborg. And so they live in a world where it's like if you are badly injured, then they will replace body parts with cyborg parts, so you like keep your life and you keep your mobility and stuff. And when I say cyborg parts, I don't just mean like a metal arm. I mean she has like computer parts in her head. And so, you know, it's a Cinderella retelling, so she has like an evil stepmom and she has stepsisters and they treat her like garbage. One of the stepsisters she is very close with. The other one, not so much. And then she catches the prince's eye, and yeah. But it's not just like lighthearted, like a fairy tale, which, I mean, if we're being real, the original fairy tales are not lighthearted. Disney made them fun, but the original ones are not. There is a rebellion because there is a plague happening in this world that like kills people. And then Luna, which is like the moon, there's like people on it. People, like the queen from Luna is like well known, like notoriously known, and she wants to marry the emperor to like unite their worlds, but like they don't want that because they don't like her and like what she does on her world. And so yeah, there's like a rebellion plot, and it is so good. It is so good. I love the series. Each book kind of follows like a different girl and like their fairy tale retelling, but then there's like a through plot. Like the through plot is like so solid that I feel like I'm reading one big book. Like each book, like the main character kind of has something going on, but then the through plot just continues. And so like the first one follows Cinder, which is Cinderella. The second one follows Scarlet, which is Red Riding Hood. But like it goes back and forth between Scarlet's point of view and Cinder's point of view, so you're still like following what Cinder's doing. The third book is called Cress, which is Rapunzel, and that one was my favorite so far, the book, and I really love Cress and her love interest a lot. And the fourth one's called Winter, which is Snow White. And yeah, so I'm currently reading Winter. I've not finished it yet. I still love it. I love the series like so much. It's so good, and like it's YA, but it's so in depth and there's so much happening, and like it toes the line. Like it, like I don't know how she made it so good because it's totally YA, but it does not feel YA. Like it's very like clean, so that makes it YA. Like there's romance, but there's like no spice, and like there's not gore, but there's definitely like there's like torture and stuff like that happens, but it's like not super described. So like everything about it is like clean to make it YA, but the storytelling is so good that it doesn't feel YA because there's so much going on. I love the series so much, and I'm so like, it's so wild to me that I had no interest in it like 10, 12 years ago. How old am I? Yeah, like 12 years ago. And now I love it. Like I love it so much. And I just think about how I could have got my whole life without reading this, and I love it. So yeah, I'm excited to finish the last book, but like I'm not because I don't want it to end. There are like novellas, so I will go back and read those, and I will be reading other books by this author because I think I'm gonna really like it. Also, not that it like really matters, but the person reading the audiobooks also did the Caraval and Once Upon a Broken Heart series, and I love her voice, so that might be part of it too. But yeah, and I did read one manga in October. Like I said, I haven't been reading much, so I only got to one in October, and that was volume 11 of One Piece, which is called The Meanest Man in the East. And with this volume, I have surpassed what I know. So a couple volumes ago, I had passed where I was in the anime, but with this manga, I have passed where the Netflix live action show ended. So I am now in new territory and I do not know what's happening, except there is a scene in this manga that I did know because I watched a TikTok with it. But my thing with spoilers is I usually forget them until I was like reading the scene and I was like, this looks familiar. And then I was like, oh yeah, I watched a TikTok. Like, it's not like it really did anything because I forgot about it. But yeah, I still am really enjoying One Piece and I do really want to read more. I'm not in a book slump. I'm like in a life slump, which means I'm not reading. So I have not really read in 2 weeks. So everything I've read was the first 2 weeks of the month, and the past 2 weeks I have just been reading a couple pages here and there. So like I'm in the middle of multiple physical books, multiple ebooks, and an audiobook, and I haven't finished any of them in 2 weeks. So yeah, that's why my like total books is kind of low this month because I just stopped reading, and I'm hoping I'm able to read more soon because there's a lot of books I'm in the middle of that I want to continue reading because I do like them. I just can't read right now. But yeah, I overall had a pretty good reading month. I think there was only like one book that I really didn't like, and everything else I liked a lot. So yeah, those are the books I read in October. Unfortunately, spooky season is over now. You can see a little bit of my decorations right here. I will be taking everything down this weekend, which I'm very sad about. I've had them up for 2 months, but it's never long enough. I did do a reading vlog for October, which is I read Craven Manor and The Kiss Curse in it, and then I read half of Halloween Party of Agatha Christie, but did not finish it, so I didn't talk about it in this wrap up, but I did talk about it a little bit in that reading vlog if you wanted to watch that. Yeah, thank you for watching and bye!